Everybody, I think, associates me with the Irish language, but the Irish language will get a footnote tonight. I would like to also just, when I have this opportunity, to acknowledge my appreciation of the James Fintan Lalor Autumn School to invite me to do this, particularly maybe being from the locality and having the privilege by marriage of being one of the Lalor clan, my husband and my mother-in-law being directly associated with the Lalor family. So rather than go on about the Lalor family at this stage, I think I have my 5 minutes, so I'll start. First of all, the aspects of a nation and a nation once again. Now, Diarmuid quite rightly pointed out that this totally coincides with the bicentenary of the birth of Thomas Davis, almost to the day being the 14th of October in 1814. They were certainly a generation of thinkers, and they were unique in that way to the Irish psyche, but not unique to the European psyche, as so much had preceded them with regard to European thinking. And that is what we have to remember, I think, when we're talking about a nation once again. While we need to take repossession of our own nation, we need also to think of it in the context of Europe as it was initiated by these people. For Davis, Ireland was only rock and sand without the nation. Arthur Griffith wrote about him in 1914. As he said, Davis was the first public man to realise that the nation must be rebuilt upon the Gael. He believed that while it is impossible to undo the plantations, it was not impossible to undo the conquest. In fact, it was necessary to undo the conquest and to rid us of that mindset, indeed a mindset that was discussed later by Douglas Hyde and subsequent leaders of the country. As Davis himself said, peace with England, alliance with England, to some extent and under certain circumstances, confederation with England, but an Irish ambition, Irish hopes, strength, virtues and rewards for the Irish. He looked at all the elements of the nation. He excluded nothing. Everything was included, from the soil to the sea, to the arts, to culture, everything, including language. And as Diarmuid pointed out earlier, a lot of these people, while they promoted Irish language as part of the psyche of the nation, they did it through English, and they didn't speak Irish, nor did any of them have it when they passed. This is important also because this was thinking that didn't come from Ireland alone. It came from Europe and some of our great philosophers. So moving on then to, at that time when we're even thinking about Irish language, at that time, Irish language was in a preservation stage. It wasn't in a revival stage. It took at least another 30 years for that mindset to take root. And one of the people who was very strong in this and the founder of the Gaelic League was Owen MacNeill, but he was also one of our great leaders. According to MacNeill, when he was asking about the nation on an editorial in Clive Sullish called The Blind Pelting the Blind in March 1900, he asked a very important question, which I think is exactly why we're here tonight. And he said, one of the main roots of half the bickerings, disunity, nonsense, and all entanglements that for so long have characterised Ireland is the fact that people don't know, never ask themselves, are never asked to ask themselves, what is nationality? So I think it's really good that we have a school like this who is embracing these questions, be it many years on. He goes on, the briefest definition of nationality that I could attempt is that a nation is composed of a body and soul, and that all efforts to nourish one or the other along natural and traditional lines make up the sum total of national endeavour. All of the eloquence that Ireland ever produced will not restrain an unfortunate hungry beggar from bending the knee for a copper, and no sensible man will pour much wrath on the poor beggar for his lack of spirit. So has the nation progressed as per the vision of Davis, Lalor and further on MacNeill, Pearse, Hyde and so forth? So looking at this, if we look at it in the context of body and soul, we look at the structural and in the ideological. If we look at it today from the 1940s, and I'll just quote a few statistics maybe, and we have a 5% predicted growth for 2015. But as Jodie Corcoran stated lately in The Independent, Enda saved the economy but has lost society. So has the nation lost too, or has it just gone astray? Well, if we look at that, there are almost almost 90,000 houses in social housing waiting as a waiting list in Dublin alone. The ESRI is calling for social housing, and looking at other aspects of equality, perhaps, our health system is in disarray, but has been in disarray for quite some time. And we're now facing extra challenges of Ebola. Our mental health has become a huge issue, and I think this is very, very important in the context of body and soul. And gender equality, 16% of Dáil members at the last election being female. These are issues that we all embrace, be it whatever party, whatever society we belong to. These are issues for us all. Agriculture, the second one, it's still one of our best assets, but bearing in mind that by 1851, Ireland had one of the most commercially advanced agricultures in the world, mainly due, as a result, actually, of the famine due to the change from tillage to livestock. Education, we're very proud of our education system, but have the values and virtues of the islands of saints and scholars become the island of scandal and struggle, perhaps? In 1841, 47% of age over 5 were able to read, and we have alleviated all those problems. Our access to third-level education is now phenomenal, although this is becoming an increasing problem with the economic struggle. Moving on then to the ideological, and I think maybe Michael has dealt with most of this, but I just would like to mention maybe the literature, language and the arts. And of course we have an exact example of the investment in the arts tonight with Brendan Deasy's Shéirí visualising the words of James Fintan Lalor. And Irish language, believe it or not, has a role to play here with the creation of new jobs. And I think until we put economic value on what we see as an ideological sentiment, we are perhaps fooling ourselves in some of the ways that we deal with this. So to conclude, I believe that it all goes back to the people, as Owen MacNeill had said, the body and soul. And this relies very much on leadership and commentarists. Lalor was one of those, as was Davis. And these people all died very young, and when we look at further on, another 50 years, we see the same. These people were not granted a long life, but yet we are here talking about them today. And in his first letter to the nation, which I think Shannon referred to earlier, now we're well aware of the prolific writings of James Fintan Lalor, and it is in his writings. And as we know, Padraig Pearse, actually, before his last visit to the National Library, he is purported to have been reading James Fintan Lalor's Clearing Decks. Also, of course, Pearse has related James Fintan Lalor as being one of the fathers of democracy and referred to him in The Sovereign People and the separatist idea. But to quote Lalor, "To the past we can never return. Even if we would, the power of framing a new order of arrangement is in your hands, my lords and gentlemen, if you choose to exercise it. Ireland demands from you now something more than her present dole of daily food, a mode and system of procuring full food for herself. Political rights, as Shannon said earlier, are but paper and parchment." So to finish off on just something very contemporary today, I happened to notice an article by Brendan O'Connor in the Irish Independent, and I do read the Irish Times as well. They just happened to be some of these quotes that rang home for this particular talk. And it was the human aspect, again, tying in with the concept of humanising the nation, and maybe in identifying the needs and new elements of nationhood that Davis outlined. Brendan O'Connor was referring to the speech that Enda Kenny gave lately at the Association of Suicidology conference, referring to young and old. And he finishes with this: "We understand more than you think," O'Connor says. "Speak to us from your heart and stop running away. Stop this infernal galloping around. Stop running away from us and sit down with us here and be our leader. Because it has been a hard 6 years and people are tired and hurting and they need a leader. A leader who hears their pain and whispers gentle healing words of poetry to them, leave behind the world of thumbs up and likes. If the leader of the Irish nation, from whatever political party, can identify the new Irish hopes, strength, virtues and rewards for the Irish that Davis advocated, and revisit the body and soul of MacNeill and look at it in the European context, then perhaps we can be a nation once again, because in simple terms, basically, we, all the people of Ireland, we are the nation. Gura Maithigh.